Hey guys, so are you wondering how to put that plate on top of the jalapeno peppers? Well, this video is going to show you how to do that. The main thing I want to touch on with these exercises that I'm having you do in Photoshop is the reason for this is because so many photographers use Photoshop to retouch their images. Now, there's other programs out there too, Lightroom being probably the most popular among photographers. But since we don't teach Lightroom here in our visual communication program, and we do teach Photoshop, I went with Photoshop for you all to learn some things on. Plus, Photoshop offers so much more than just Lightroom. Lightroom is mainly for working with photographs. Photoshop is for designing. It's for working with images. It's for designing. You can create brochures and, I mean, CD covers, business cards. You can do all kinds of things in Photoshop that you can't do in Lightroom. So, all right, let's get started. I have already got the picture pulled up. This is the 9A background, the jalapeno peppers, and then, or are those jalapeno peppers? Maybe they're not. I'm probably calling them the wrong thing because I don't do spice, so I apologize if I'm calling these the wrong thing. But let's just call them the peppers. How's that? And then I've got the other one, the top layer, and that's the plate of the food. Okay? Now, here's what you need to do. You just need to, oh, can't do that because it's locked. You just need to get this image on top of this image. All right? Now, the first thing we need to do is take this white background off. There's different ways of doing this in Photoshop, but the easiest way is just to use your color selection tool here. Well, it's a quick selection tool. And you click on that. Now, it works on your brush size, so if you'll notice that all the tools here in Photoshop, every time you click on one, the options up here changes because the options bar is related to whatever tool you're clicked on. So if I want to change the size of that, I can just go up here and change it. And then I do have to drag it down to my screen to see how big it became. You can tell that by the width and see how big that one is. That's way too big. I can go back down a little bit and maybe even a little bit more. And when you're doing a color selection, you want your hardness to be at 100% because you don't want to feather your selection or have any kind of opaqueness in there. Okay, there we go, and then we just start clicking around through there, and bam, it picks up all the white color. That's the great thing about the quick selection tool. So now I actually have the white selected, and I could hit delete, or I could just go to select inverse, and it will change my selection from the white to everything but the white. Okay, now if I really want to get tedious, I can zoom in here and see that I've actually missed a little bit of my red here. So if I wanted to take my brush down, and guys, y'all don't have to do this. This is not a Photoshop class, it's a photography class. But if you want to know how to do it, then I'll show you. Take your brush size down, and then see how it's got the plus inside of it? That means you can just add to your selection, and now you can just kind of paint over those pixels that it captured a while ago. And it did that because those pixels were pretty close to white and it was right on the edge. But now you see I went too far. Now if I hold down my Alt or Option key on a Mac, then the plus turns into a minus, and you can kind of see where you can go back and forth like that. And this is how you really get good selections, by getting in there, having your picture zoomed up, what am I at? 441% right now. So you really want to zoom in so you can see the pixels. Pixels are the little squares that you see in here. I can zoom up even more, and you can see the pixel grid. Photoshop allows us to see a pixel grid. You can also turn the pixel grid off if you wanted to, but I like to keep it there because it kind of lets me see exactly what color is in each pixel, and that's very helpful when you're doing tedious work. All right, so now we have our plate pretty well selected, and if I just go up here and go Edit, Copy, and then switch right back over to my peppers and then just go edit, paste. Now I've got my plate in here. I'm going to get up here on my move tool. I'm going to move that plate right over the peppers. Excuse me. And you can see that it's not quite large enough, so I'm going to pull on one of the corner handles here to make it larger. Okay, and I'm going to hold my shift key. If I hold my shift key and pull on the quarter handle, that will keep my image in proportion, meaning it won't allow me to stretch it out of proportion. This is really stretched out. You've seen images like this in local magazines and newspapers, I'm sure. Let me go back. Okay, I'm just going to not do that one and try that again. This time holding my shift key, and I don't want it that big. I don't want it to be so large it's going to hang over my peppers. Now, this particular picture here, it is a little bit out of proportion for what we're doing with it. So I am just going to pull up on the top here just a little bit to round that plate out a little bit more. I don't want to go too much because you see my food starts looking a little weird. And so somewhere about like right there. I'm just covering up the ends of those peppers. Okay, and then once I get finished with that, notice my border is still around there. That's called a bounding box. And I can just double click inside there to commit to that selection or that transformation, or I can go up here to the check mark in my options bar and tell it to commit. Okay, now my transform controls are still here, so I can go ahead and I could rotate, if I want to rotate from here. Or I could just, start resizing again. Or I can move it a little bit if I want to. And that's it. That's all you have to do for that one. Now, I did ask you to add some text. So get your text tool and you can add, I don't know, firecracker. Probably need some color. If you happen to have this same problem, once you click on your color palette, you'll see, get me a nice bright red here. Maybe something a little brighter than that. Alright. I'm going to take this out. Firecracker Surprise. I'm not really crazy about that font. I mean, I guess it's okay. You do whatever kind of font that you think would look nice. Just gonna see if I can find something down through here that might work okay. I want something really. I kind of want it to be bold. Maybe something like that. Firecracker. That's still not exactly what I want. But for the sake of time, I will not put you all through my font selection process because it does take me a while. But just something like that. And then if you wanted to really play around with your text, you can get back on there. And then while you're in, you've got to be on the text tool and in the text box, okay? And then you can go up here to this T that's on the curve up here in your options bar. And this is going to give you several different options to warp the text. You can go to style, you can go arc up, and you can actually pull that down with that box still open. And you can even work on it from there if you don't want it to arc that much. You can arc it vertical, which is like crazy. Almost looks like a cheerleader horn type thing. What are those things called? I can't think of the name. Anyhow, you can just do different stuff with this. You can show lower. Just, whatever. You want it to be readable. So don't get too crazy with it. Actually, you could do the flag and probably just turn it down. Maybe. There we go. But usually I probably would just go with like an arc. And then go back to horizontal. and something like that. I mean, and you can even like separate your words. You don't have to use those all in one text box. If you want to use like firecracker up here at the top and do an arc up, and then you use surprise at the bottom and do an arc downward, you could do that. Just play around with it. Have fun. That's what Photoshop is about, is getting in there and having fun. Okay? I look forward to seeing what you're going to submit. Thanks.